Professor Vervaeke. If you remember, I called you that once.
Well, actually, can never call me that again.
Yes, yes. When we met in the flesh for the first time outside your hotel in London last year.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, and we had a great dinner afterwards and a wonderful week. But now we already have 25 people here joining us, which is excellent. John has a bit to share with us because John is teaching a new course, Beyond Nihilism,
Yes.
which is the philosophical diagnosis or analysis of the meaning crisis series,
Yeah.
and even, I guess, also going further than that. May I say also just briefly, enrollment is open. The link to enroll, I'll put that in the chat, and I think it's also in the description of the video. And John will just tell us for about 30 minutes what the course is about. And actually, we're starting on the 27th of June, or as you say in America, June 27th. John.
Yes. So I'm very excited about this. As you mentioned, Johannes, I've done a lot of work, cognitive scientific work, psychological work, etc., on the meaning crisis. There's awakening from the meaning crisis, and then an ecology of practices in response to that developed in After Socrates. But what I wanted to do here is to look at sort of the philosophical dimension of the meaning crisis on its own. I've always done it in conjunction with other things, and I think that's appropriate. But I also want to be able to take this apart and look at, the philosophical dimension of the meaning crisis, which is this position of nihilism, and look at some of the significant articulation and responses to it. Now, of course, there was many people I could choose from, and so I had, and then the course would have been very, very long. So I had to choose. I wanted to do 4 people and spend at least a couple weeks on each people, so we could get a somewhat in depth. So I chose the 4 I chose for the following reason. I chose Tillich because there was a resurgence of interest post World War II around the issue of nihilism and meaninglessness, and Tillich is situated right at that time. And he writes a book which many people, and I do too, consider a masterpiece, The Courage to Be. And it's a very good entry point into it because he covers some of the history of this response to the threat of meaninglessness. And he does something which is very good in an overall setup. He presents how there's a perennial problem that human beings face and how have been various historical responses, but there's actually a specific current historical version of this, which is, and then he makes his proposal about, a new understanding of God, ultimate reality, which is appropriate way to talk about it for him, because he talks about ultimate concern for what's ultimate. And I think that really sets up the philosophical dimension of the problem and how it overlaps with important existential and broadly construed theological issues. And then we will move into Rosen, who wrote a really brilliant essay, book-length essay called Nihilism, because he sets it up very well. And what's very good about the Rosen book is, unlike Tillich that gives you just sort of this overview and sets it up, Rosen goes in and tries to give like the philosophical engines behind nihilism. And so he has some astonishing, well, to my mind, I think they're very good critiques of Wittgenstein and Heidegger, and then also around Hegel and historicism. And then he moves towards a proposal, basically a Platonic proposal, and about a way of revising Platonism and Neoplatonism as a way of responding to nihilism. Now, I find this tremendously prescient because many people now who are doing this from the Western tradition are doing it within that Platonic, Neoplatonic tradition. Now, we step outside that tradition to get some good cross-cultural, cross-historical, and we're going to do Nishitani and his book, The Self-Overcoming of Nihilism. Now, what's really interesting is Nishitani is writing about Western philosophical people. Nietzsche is the key figure in the book, but he's doing it from outside the tradition, and he's doing it ultimately from a Zen framework. And this gives him, I think, many people, even today, say this gives him some very powerful insight into the machinery of nihilism and the ways it can be overcome. And as the title indicates, it has to be sort of overcome from within in a very powerful way. And this book, by the way, some of you might have taken the wonderful course on Nishitani's Religion and Nothingness, one of the top 5 books, to my mind, that has been written in the history of philosophy. This book is the book that comes just before that. Not just, I mean, there's a couple intervening, but this is the book that sets up Religion and Nothingness. And many people have argued, and I agree with this argument, that the 2 books should actually be, you should make sure you have read both, because they speak to each other. So I'm bringing in Nishitani because he has something powerful to say about nihilism. It connects with a previous course and a book that's already here at Halcyon. So that will bridge. That was the choice.
I do recognize a couple of names already from Daniel's course from 2 years ago.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. So that's just gonna come, I think, provide some wonderful integration. So that's a bit of the pedagogue in me wanting to do that. And then we end up with D.C. Schindler's Love in the Postmodern Predicament, because Schindler, this is a very recent book. Schindler represents the culmination of that sort of Platonic, Neoplatonic response to nihilism, but he also is taking into account more recent developments in postmodern philosophy, etc. And that way we have a very comprehensive, I think, representation of some of the main ways in which you can look at the philosophical problem of nihilism, the arguments around it. I will supplement each one of the books that we're reading with, when we're talking about D.C. Schindler, I'll bring in other stuff he's done, like The Catholicity of Reason or Plato's Critique of Impure Reason. Nishitani, of course, I'll have to talk about some aspects of Religion and Nothingness and some of his other work. Rosen probably will talk a little bit more about, extended out a little bit around his understanding of Platonism, that he's sort of prescient of third wave Platonism, but he's a little bit before it, but he's right on the cusp. So there's so much that's going to go into this, and I'm going to try and balance this between like a lecture and discussion.
Yeah. So maybe just on that, just to explain to everyone, and John, you can say more on this too. We're meeting 8 times. John is lecturing the first half, say 45 minutes and maybe an hour. And then we send you off. So you'll be in the virtual classroom on Zoom with John. We then send you off into a breakout session. Let's say we've got 40 people attending or so, 30. You'll be in a group of 3 to maybe 4 people. So you get 15 minutes to discuss what you've just heard and what you've been reading. And then you come back for another 45 to 60 minutes of discussion in a group led by John Vervaeke. And I'll be there in the background. I'll just be taking care of the Zoom stuff and everything. And you also, if you do sign up for because someone just asked, Dali, who always is present here and is a wonderful presence, Dali. When is the cutoff date for enrollment? There's not really a cutoff date, but I think John and I have agreed on a maximum number of around 40, 45. And we now have, as I mentioned before, 23 places left on the seminars. So the cutoff is simply when it's full in that case. We start in 19 days from now. And we're meeting, just to mention this briefly, maybe I'll just show this, and then John, you can go back to how you envision the lectures and the seminars. Just to show you this briefly, this is the enrollment page. So we'll meet 8 times. That's 6 to 8 p.m. UK time on Tuesdays, 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern time, and then 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific time, June 27th, July 4th, July 11th, July 18th. Then we'll have a bit of a break And then with a bit more breaks in between, we're finishing September 5th. Because John is traveling, but this also gives us more time just to do the reading. And
Yeah.
obviously you are encouraged to meet in between, find your peers in the group. You'll get access to the Halcyon forum, which will be as active as you make it. So that's, it's a chance for you to engage with others and continue reading, form a reading group and see where it leads you. So, John, back to you.
Yes, I mean, we're going to be reading these 4 books. The Tillich Courage to Be, Rosen's Nihilism, Nishitani's The Self-Overcoming of Nihilism, and D.C. Schindler's Love in the Postmodern Predicament. We're going to be reading these 4 books in their entirety. None of these books are a beach read. You don't take these books to the beach unless you have a really cool beach. These books require careful reading. They will often require you read things multiple times. And so I'm not going to be able in the lecture to cover. I'm not going to go through this page by page or anything like that. I'm going to give you some like overarching arguments that I think are central from like the book. We'll do half of each book each week. So no, that's a wrong sentence. Each week we will do half of a book, right? Either the first or the second half. So I'll take the core argument from this first and the second half, and I'll be presenting that and doing what I do with it, bringing in CogSci, bringing in other stuff. And then in the seminars, I want people to feel free to discuss not only what has happened in the lecture, but also anything else in the reading that they want to bring to bear. Like I say, I can't go through, I couldn't even do one of these books on its own with that level of detail. So I'm going to try and do, what I hope are affording lectures and provocative lectures. And then there'll be the seminar discussion. We will discuss my arguments, but also other parts of the book that you think are relevant or pertinent for bringing into the discussion. So there's quite a bit of reading. There are gaps in which you can catch up. And the final book is the thinnest book and none of them are tomes. None of them are really huge books. So that also guided the selection I've made. One of the advantages is I'm in a relationship and current discussion with one of the authors, namely David Schindler. And so there's a possibility also, if there's questions that come up out of this, I might get the opportunity to have a discussion with David about those questions. So that's all. I can't promise anything, but that's a genuine possibility.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you. So just midweek discussions are a must. Dawson, more reading groups need more time in the week. Michael has been coming since last year, braving through Hegel courses and Heidegger with me, which is, I know, terrible. So, but he's still there and he's coming to this one, which is excellent. And yeah, Dawson has been running a couple of reading groups also, and Nathan has been coming for about, I think, almost 2 years now, and just registered. So a question, this is a technical question that I can answer. And Andre asked, what will the online part contain? And by that he means the self-study recorded lectures. Just maybe I'll point this out now because it was just brought up. There are 3 different options, let's say, that you can choose from. The first one is pre-recorded lectures, or recorded lectures would be more accurate actually in that case, which means that if you really cannot make it to the seminars, but you'd still like to listen to what John has to teach us on these thinkers, just also so you know, this course will not be made available on John's YouTube channel. So unlike Awakening from the Meaning Crisis, this is something that John has developed exclusively for the Academy. What you will get is the recording of the lecture plus the recording of the seminar. Obviously, you will not get access to the live seminar. So that's what's included. And so that's 8 lectures, give or take 2 hours each, because obviously the breakout sessions are not recorded. These are 15 minutes long. Maybe sometimes we'll go a bit over. John has a tight schedule, so there's no problem. But it's 2 hours, which is quite long already. So give or take 2 hours each of these lectures by John. Then this one here, that's what we call the Philosophical Fellowship, live groups, lectures, and seminars with John Vervaeke. Just to say this again, John lectures in the beginning, 45 minutes to an hour. Then you join a breakout session, 3 to 4 to maybe 5 people, depending on the group size. And that gives you a chance to meet everybody else and also discuss what you've just heard or what you've been reading. And when you come back, that's another 45 to 60 minutes of group discussion with John. But also afterwards, John will have to leave us, obviously, at some point. But we'll then stop the recording and we'll open the salon. So let's say 10 people stay. Maybe we just, break you up into 2 groups. Maybe let's say only 5 people can make it that day. We'll just leave the Zoom meeting open and you can stay as long as you like. I don't know if you saw that, John, I taught a seminar on Jean Baudrillard in April. And it was 3 hours on Saturday and 3 hours on Sunday. On Saturday, I left after 4. On Sunday, I left after 7. Because I thought, it's midnight now. Maybe I should eat something now. I'd been sitting there since 6 p.m. without any break. But they just kept going. So a couple of people who are also here today, Dawson, one of them, they just kept going. And Zoom is very gracious for, that we have 2 more of these private tutorials with John. So if you want to speak with John directly, you can register. I think there's 2 left for that one. So that would be including 1 hour of private dialogue with John Vervaeke. And yeah, so those are the 3 different options that you can choose from. I hope that answers your questions, Andre. Thank you very much. Maybe here's one for you, John. Is there any preparation one can do before the course?
Yeah, I mean, you know what the books are. You can get them and start reading them. Like, I expect people will want or need to read them more than once. But having read at least maybe the first 2 ahead of time will give you the time to do a slower, careful second reading in conjunction with the lectures and the discussions. So that would be the best prep. For those who are more ambitious, you might want to take a look at my 2 existing series to see where I'm coming from. And they are Awakening from the Meaning Crisis and After Socrates. And we're releasing the very last episode of After Socrates this Friday. So that journey is now complete. Other than that, I don't think there's much more you need to do.
Excellent. So, John, is there anything you'd like to add?
I'm really looking forward to this. I'm hoping that people will come in with this wanting to do 2 things: wanting to zero in on the philosophical dimension, which I think is what we want to do here at Halkyan, but always broadening, sort of responsibly broadening the sense of what it is to do philosophy. As we do that, that's part of what the argument's going to be, and we'll see that emerging through these authors. So that's why some familiarity with the project that you've seen me do in some of you, that was pretentious and presumptive. Some of you have seen me do in some of the other series, like Awakening, and especially After Socrates Broadening. You can also see some of the discussions I've had with Johannes and Daniel and others around. We had a whole series about this and the return of the forms, which I think would be a great thing to watch. I don't know if you could make that available for people, Johannes, but we did that series of discussions about the return of the forms and this attempt to broaden the notion of philosophy. That might be valuable also for people.
Yeah, sorry, go on. I'm going to look for that one and put it in the chat.
Yeah, we won't specifically talk about this except here and there in passing. All of this is the meaning crisis and the problem of nihilism and attending problems of non-philosophical cynicism and things like that are going to be exacerbated, already are being exacerbated by the advent of AGI, artificial general intelligence. And I just had a great discussion not that long ago with Johannes. And who was was it Seth? Was that the name of the third person?
Sean
McFadden.
Yeah.
Sean McFadden. Sorry about that. Talking to a lot of people right now about AI. So if you're interested in that, because everybody and their uncle is right now, you can also take a look at that video. You can take a look at the original video essay I did on it. I don't want to be talking about that specifically in the course, but I will entertain, questions here and there about the connection between what's happening right now and the philosophical problem of nihilism.
So this is Dawson. I hope you can come.
Yeah.
He says, I respect your approach to philosophy as both the art of living as well as the art of dialogue, disputation. May an official academy open one day as a place to dwell and to think.
Yeah, well, I want to try and create such a place. I have a joke name for it. I talk about with Christopher Mastropietro and Ryan Barton from the Vervaeke Foundation. I want to set up the One Stop Enlightenment Shop in Toronto. That's just a placeholder title, but we do want to try and make a place that aspires to be what the Academy was, as you said. But it would be actually even more what the Academy was. It would be the Academy, bordering on, connected to the gymnasium or the dojo, and also bordering on the shrine, the grove, and try and get all of those into a location where people could come to do the deepest kind of education, transformation, retreat, all of that. So I'm definitely trying to make that happen at some time, Dawson. It's definitely in the cards, and hopefully we'll come up with a better title for other than the jokey one. But that is definitely a project that's in the works with the Vervaeke Foundation.
Excellent. So, John, as you know, you always have the floor, so you can just go on forever. But actually, you can't, because you have to leave in a couple of minutes. So if there are any more questions that are specifically on the course, and you should ask them now so John can respond to them. So we've seen a couple of people enroll, which is great. The link to enroll is this one.
Yeah. I saw it. You put it up earlier.
I'll just put it in again because this gets lost. So we hope you can make it. We begin June 27th, which is a Tuesday.
Yep.
6 to 8 p.m. UK time. That's 7 to 9 p.m. For Central Europe. Or what is it in your time zone again?
1 to 3.
1 to 3 Eastern time. You're in Toronto. And then for anyone on the West Coast, it's 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. John, just to say this again, John leads the seminars. So you'll be in the classroom with Professor Vervaeke.
You were waiting for another opportunity to do that.
I actually was, yeah.
There's one question I'll address it. Fezziwig, how relevant is Nietzsche's Thus Spake Zarathustra to this course, and why not included? So several of the authors are going to talk at length, especially Nishitani, about Nietzsche. So he's going to be very present. That specific book isn't on. I try to give you the reasons why I chose the people I did. There's a lot of other people that could be on the book list, but Nietzsche is going to be discussed at length throughout the course. So I didn't give him a specific book for that reason.
No, it's also striking that in the published works by Nietzsche, nihilism is not really that much of an issue. So even in the Zarathustra, yes, the death of God is mentioned, but nihilism you find mostly in the Nachlass, which is about, that's where the notion of the Europäische Nihilism, the European nihilism, comes in, that Jünger works on, that Heidegger works on, etc. But as John just mentioned, as we're reading Nishitani together, Nietzsche, of course, is present, but is present also importantly from a perspective that comes from the outside to Europe.
Yeah, and he has a critique, Nishitani, not just criticism. He has a critique of Heidegger's appropriation of Nietzsche, which I think people will find valuable and very thought-provoking.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, actually, to hear more of this. So I just mentioned, this is Harris. He's actually currently at the Philosophy of the Machine course, which Sean teaches.
Right.
Yeah. So I think Harris actually also found us through you. So that helped. And now he's coming back to yours.
I strongly believe in Halkian and what it stands for and what it's doing. And of course, I have a tremendous amount of respect and affection for you, Johannes. So that's another reason why I wanted to do this.
Thank you, sir. Very kind. Joshua is currently in the Hegel course and reading with me on Musa, on Lesha. So he'll be joining us as well. I think he's also a fellow Canadian.
Yep. Well,
further up in Montreal.
Everything important is happening in Canada.
Good to hear. Well, I just I listened to a talk by Jonathan Peugeot last week, Monday.
Yeah.
On the symbolic order and monarchy and the symbolism of monarchy, etc.
Yeah, he and I were
fellow Canadian, obviously.
Yeah, he and I were together at Chino, and those talks have come out on his channel, my channel, and Paul Vanderklee's channel as well. Really, that was a really wonderful. Many people said the discussion I had with him at Chino, which became Genuine Dialogos, was the best they'd ever heard the two of us participate in. So yeah, he's doing a lot of really cool stuff right now.
Yeah, he is, and so is another Canadian that you may have heard of. His name's Jordan Peterson. I don't know if you're aware of him.
Oh yes. Yeah. So it's been a bit since I've talked with Jordan. We've had some good email back and forth, but I haven't seen him in person since did the talk where he was wearing the Twitter suit.
Right.
So, and many more comments on the Twitter suit than on the content of the talk. So there you go.
Oh yeah. Heaven and Hell, I think it is. Oh no, that was a Twitter one. Yeah, I always forgot those. Yeah. So I think we've answered all questions that we could here, and I hope that we've provided you the answers that you need. If you know anyone who's interested in John's work or in nihilism more broadly, philosophically speaking, but also, of course, in the traditions of Buddhism or Christianity, who address this, thinkers like Tillich, for example, then you should enroll in this course. There should now be about 20 places left, if I can count still, which I never trust myself in doing. So is another one? Are you seeing one? No.
Another question?
Yeah, I just thought you were looking at it. Okay.
No, I'm just looking at some wonderful, some very nice comments that people were making. So
if you want to highlight one of them, let me know which one.
Oh, Dolly just said the Chino talks were profound, John. It touched my soul in a great way, which I really appreciate. That's really nice. Just maybe one point about that. I tried to get a variety. Two of the thinkers are from the Christian tradition. One is from the Buddhist tradition, and one is not from either the Buddhist or Christian, but from his most clear self-identification is the Platonic tradition, which also interweaves with all the others. So I tried to balance things out that way as well.
Yeah, as you always do.
Well, not always, but hopefully getting better at it.
Most of the time that I've seen you and heard you and talked to you. So thank you very much, John, for your time. Thanks everybody else for listening and for your questions and for your engagement here in the chat today. We look forward to having you. We're beginning in exactly 19 days from now. Link to enroll, again, is somewhere in the chat, but also in the description of the video if you see this later. If you know anyone, again, share the video with them, please, and make them aware that John is teaching a course, Beyond Nihilism.
Yes, yeah. Looking forward to it tremendously. Great pleasure, as always, Johannes, getting to spend some time with you. I look forward to meeting many of you and to really wrestling with one of the most pertinent and pressing problems of our time within a philosophical framework. So thank you very much, everyone. Take good care.
Thank you. Good night.